Coming up on Locked On Dodgers, the Dodgers lost to the Rockies again for the third straight game. We're going to talk about the Andrew Heaney experience and what it might tell us about the postseason. Going to give some updates on Blake Treinen and Dustin May. We're going to talk about the Major League Baseball, just baseball fans' weird obsession with round numbers. And we're going to talk about the playoff format. The schedule is now set, so we'll talk all about what to expect in the postseason. So let's get Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, Dodger fans. This is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. Or even better, go ahead and subscribe wherever you're watching or listening right now, and then you will never miss a day because you know we're not going to. If this is your first time watching or listening, I am Jeff Snider. My normal co-host is Vince Samperio, but it's just me tonight. Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans just like you are. We've also both spent time covering the Dodgers at the press box and the locker room. So we're not quite insiders, but we bring you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. So again, go ahead and subscribe wherever you're watching or listening. And let's get started. The Dodgers lost to the Rockies 5-2. It's their third straight loss. They've now lost 3 of the first 5 games of this 6-game series. They need to win on Wednesday, their season finale. They need to win to avoid losing the series. They also need to win to get to 111 wins, which would give them officially the best winning percentage in Dodgers franchise history, which is something to play for. And mostly they need to win just so that people will stop freaking out. You know, it would be nice if the Dodgers come out and just put up a 10 spot on Wednesday. Just remind everybody, yeah, we're the Dodgers, they're the Rockies, and we're going to be fine in the postseason. There really is no correlation. Study after study has been done. There's no correlation about how well a team plays going into the postseason and how that correlates to how they play in the postseason. You can stumble into the postseason and then play great. You can play great and then stumble in the postseason. Last year, the Dodgers finished really, really strong. I think they're like 13-2 in their last 15 games and didn't make it past the NLCS, you know, and some of that was because they had to so hard to get trying to win the division. And so this is basically the opposite of that. The Dodgers have not played a meaningful game in a month. And, you know, they did a pretty good job most of this last month of staying on top of things. They kept their foot on the gas for the most part. The last couple of days, not so much. And some of that is, you know, I'm going to talk about Freddie Freeman in the second segment. You know, he's part of that. He's just struggling. Trey Turner's struggling. And you hope that those things will turn on once the games start mattering again. Some of it is just the way they're being managed and playing. Their goal is to stay healthy right now. And then they'll spend the 5 days off that they have between tomorrow's, or I guess when you're listening to this, today's season finale and their first playoff game. They'll spend that time getting ready to hopefully hit the ground running. And we'll see if it's a disadvantage. I'm going to talk in the third segment about the playoff format and the matchups and everything. And we'll see if it's a disadvantage at all having the first round bye. Obviously, the rest is nice. Getting to set up your rotation is nice, but the Dodgers will be playing somebody who has just played. And so they won't have that rest. They'll have other disadvantages. So I'm interested to see how this whole thing plays out. I think overall the first round bye will be a net positive, but we'll talk about that in the third segment. So in this game, Julio Urias started the game, went 5 innings, gave up 2 solo homers. That was all the runs he allowed. His ERA went up from 2.12 to 2.16. Still plenty low to win the NL ERA title. So congratulations to Julio on that. As I talked about last week, I don't think he's going to win the Cy Young Award, and that's okay. Hopefully the Dodgers' approach with him will pay off in a World Series title instead of the Cy Young Award that he just didn't throw enough innings to earn when Sandy Alcantara has thrown so many innings, I guess. But Andrew Heaney came in after Julio. Heaney pitched the last 4 innings, and unfortunately, he gave up a 2-run homer, later gave up an RBI single. Heaney struck out 7 of the 17 batters he faced. But of the 10 that he didn't strike out, they went 5 for 10 with a double and a homer. And that's kind of the story of Heaney's season. He strikes out a ton of dudes, ended up with like 110 strikeouts in 72 innings, something like that. And but he also gave up 14 home runs. His final ERA was like 3.10-ish. Not bad, but not nearly as sparkling as it was early in the season. And Heaney is one of the biggest question marks going into the postseason because he's kind of a wild card. I could see him bombing in the postseason. I could see him being a huge contributor because he has such good stuff. He does have that swing and miss stuff. Unfortunately, he also has that swing and mash stuff. And he needs to get over the swing and mash and get more of the swing and miss, because if he's a guy who can come in and pitch 3 or 4 innings at a time, strike out a bunch of dudes and keep you in a game, that's super valuable. Whether it's as a piggyback guy, after, coming in after Tony Gonsolin or whatever it is, there's so much potential value there. I really could see Heaney. I could see us looking back and thinking, wow, Andrew Heaney was a really valuable part of that World Series win. But then there's also the chance that he could just, suck, give up a ton of home runs, and be, unfortunately, he's a guy we can look back and say, oh, he's a big part of that World Series loss or that NLCS loss or whatever it is. Hopefully it won't come to that, but he's one of the biggest wild cards for me because of that. Joey Gallo hit a home run to tie the game, got Julio off the hook for the loss. He later struck out. So we got the full Andrew Heaney experience, and we got the full Joey Gallo experience. All we needed was a walk from Gallo, I guess, to complete it. But after the game, Dave Roberts said that Joey Gallo will be on the postseason roster. And there was a time when this wouldn't have been news. Lately, I think it kind of is news because he has been really, really bad lately. In fact, after his first 14 games with the Dodgers, his first 14 games, he had a OPS over 1,000. Since then, it's under 500, I believe. It's really, really bad. And, I don't know. He provides good defense. But there was some thoughts that, like, okay, what about James Outman? What about Kevin Pillar? Somebody like that who can provide that defense, but also maybe put the bat on the ball sometimes. And I think they want to go. I think after last year, they got burned with rookies and unproven guys in the postseason. I just don't think there's a spot in the postseason game where Dave Roberts would feel comfortable sending James Outman to the plate. After we saw Outman made a big splash, hit a home run in his first at bat, hit the ball really well, but he also struck out a ton. His strikeout rate, he struck out more than half the time. It was a very, very small sample. But when your BABIP is 1,000, every time James Outman put the ball in play, he got a hit. But that's because he didn't put the ball in play many, many times and struck out a bunch. And even in the minor leagues, he's had a pretty high strikeout rate. And I think there just aren't any positions where Roberts would feel comfortable putting Outman in, or maybe even Pillar, and you'd rather just go with the proven veteran, even though you're going to have to pick and choose where you put Gallo in and hope he gets hot at the right time. It's interesting, though, that they are committed to him being on the roster. I don't know. I'm a little surprised by it. I thought they might seriously be considering replacing him with Pillar or with Miguel Vargas or with somebody, and Vargas might still end up on the roster if Chris Taylor can't go. But I'll talk a little bit more about Chris Taylor in the next segment, along with Dustin May and Blake Treinen, some updates on all three of those guys. So I'm going to take a break, and then I'll come back and talk about those guys, as well as baseball's obsession with round numbers. So thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. Simply Safe is a security system. The numbers don't lie. In the last decade, over 4 million people have chosen Simply Safe Home Security to protect their home. You don't earn the trust of that many people without doing something right. At Simply Safe, your safety is the only thing that matters. It's basically, you can customize your own security system. It's great whether you own a home or rent an apartment. One of the great things about SimpliSafe is it's modular. It's easy to set up. You don't need to bring in a professional to drill a bunch of holes and everything. You set up your system. They send you the stuff. You set it up, and it's really, really easy to set up, easy to take with you when you move. There's so much to it. And one of the best parts is the monitoring. With 24/7 professional monitoring, Simply Safe's agents call you the moment a threat is detected and dispatch police or first responders in an emergency, even if you're not home or you can't be reached. I can tell you from experience, there is no better peace of mind that when you go out of town, or even you just go out for the evening, heading to the Dodger game, whatever it is, to set that alarm as you leave and know my belongings, my house is secure. And if something happens, they're going to call the police for me and they're going to protect my domain. It's if you don't have a security system, you really should look into it. And because you're listening to this podcast, there's a great deal for you. Customize the perfect system for your home in just a few minutes at simplysafe.com/lockedonmlb. Save 20% on your SimpliSafe security system when you sign up for an interactive monitoring plan and get your first month free. Visit SimpliSafe, simplisafe.com/lockedonmlb to learn more. There's no safe like SimpliSafe. All right, I am back. I want to thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. It really does mean a lot to me and to Vince that you take the time to talk Dodgers with us every day. We would love to hear from you. If you're watching on YouTube, we'd love to hear your comments in the comment section. If you're listening on the podcast, shoot us a message or a tweet or whatever. I'll give you all the contact info at the end, and hopefully, we'd love to hear from you because we really do love interacting with you guys. Excuse me. I had to hit the cough button for a second. I'm battling a cold right now. You could probably hear it in my voice. But speaking of battling, Blake Treinen is battling to get back onto the Dodgers roster. And we got an update on him and Dustin May from Dave Roberts before Tuesday's game. Both of those guys will throw sim games today. And it's actually a pretty consequential sim game or a couple of sim games. I don't know if you call it one sim game that they both pitch in or multiple sim games. I don't know the sim game protocol, but whatever it is, it's going to be meaningful because Blake Treinen, he threw a bullpen session. He said he felt good, but this is going to be a big test, him facing hitters. And he is hoping to be ready for the NLDS, but right now, we really have no idea if he's going to be ready, and we'll have a better idea after the sim game. Dustin May, kind of the same thing. He will throw a sim game, but the interesting thing there is Dave Roberts actually said, even if everything goes well, Dustin May's spot on the postseason roster, on the NLDS roster, isn't guaranteed. And that's kind of interesting because, it's pretty easy to put together a pitching staff right now of, if you go with the 6 starters, even though you only need 4 as starters, you go Julio, Kershaw, Anderson, and Gonsolin as your 4 starters, plus Heaney and May as starters who aren't starting but can give you multiple innings. And then in the bullpen, you've got Treinen, you've got Evan Phillips, Yency Almonte, Alex Vesia, Brusdar Graterol, Tommy Kahnle, Chris Martin, those 7 guys. Those 7 guys have been awesome. Their combined ERA this year is like 190. And that's a pretty great bullpen. And plus you've got, May and Heaney who can go multiple innings. Like, you could put that pitching staff together and say, yeah, I feel good about this. But there's David Price and Caleb Ferguson. Both aren't on that list. Both of them are lefties. And maybe you don't like having Vesia being your only real left-handed reliever. We'll see, we're going to talk in the third segment about the actual playoff bracket, and they're not going to have any teams early in the postseason anyway that they're going up against who have, huge left-handed presence where you might need 2 left-handed relievers, but they might want another lefty, so maybe you go with Price or Ferguson. I also didn't mention Craig Kimbrell. Kimbrell is still Craig Kimbrell, and he still has a chance at the postseason roster. And I could see them leaving May off in favor of Kimbrell, just thinking, okay, in a short series, we're not going to need both Heaney and May for the long relief. So maybe we go with Kimbrell instead, an extra short relief arm. There's things they could do. I think I'd still be surprised if May isn't on the roster, assuming he's healthy. And I know that's not a safe assumption, especially with the Dodgers, how things are. It seems like these decisions always get made by health. And so maybe Treinen and May both don't come out of the sim game well. Neither of them's ready for the NLDS, and both Kimbrell and Ferguson make the roster, whatever it is. But if everybody's healthy, I think I would go with those 7, the 6 starters and those 7 relievers I listed. But it seems like the Dodgers might be considering going a different way. Chris Taylor was the other guy there was an update on. He Chris Taylor said he's 100% confident he's going to be ready for the NLDS. Dave Roberts was asked what he'd need to see to know that Taylor's ready. And basically he said, if he's healthy, we're going to trust him to be in there. And basically his health, Roberts said they'll judge it by the quality of the swings. He's going to be hitting in some of these sim games at some point, maybe even today. And they'll have to look and see, okay, how does his swing look? Roberts talked about, does he look like he's favoring his neck when he swings? Because if he's not healthy, they're not going to put him in. But if he is, then yeah, he's going to have a spot on the roster and get some starts once in a while. And what we've seen in the past, Chris Taylor hits well in the postseason. I don't know how much I believe in postseason hitting ability as an actual ability. I think I believe that good hitters will eventually hit good in the postseason and bad hitters will eventually hit bad in the postseason. And, but I don't know, maybe I'm missing something there, but, that's kind of the updates, and we're kind of getting, in some ways, a more clear picture of the playoff roster, and in other ways, we still have no idea. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next few days as the Dodgers go through some of these sim games to get ready for the postseason, both getting guys healthy again and keeping guys sharp so they don't get rusty. One guy who is looking a little bit rusty is Freddie Freeman. He had his third straight 0-for-4 game. He now goes into the season finale needing 4 hits to get to 200. He also needs probably about 4 hits to have a chance at the batting title. He's trailing Jeff McNeil at this point. And it's kind of funny to me that the 200 hit thing, I understand wanting to win the batting title. The 200 hit thing, it's this weird obsession that baseball fans have with round numbers ending in 0 or even 2 zeros. That's huge, You have a guy like Bert Blyleven, didn't get in the Hall of Fame for years and years because he didn't win 300 games because he only won 287 or something. Like there's really a substantial difference in those 13 wins. If he had played for 2 more years and been lousy but got those 13 wins, would he be more of a Hall of Famer in some people's minds? Yeah. Freddie Freeman, he already has a career high in hits. He has more hits this year than he has ever had before. He's never hit 200 hits in a season. But for some reason, 200 hits is this magical number. It reminds me of the other week when Albert Pujols hit number 700. It's like, when Albert Pujols hit his 700th home run, he moved from 4th place on the all-time home run list to 4th place. He didn't pass anybody. He had already passed Alex Rodriguez with number 697. That was the important one. That one, 697 was important. 715 would be important. Those are when you pass guys on the list. 700 is just a round number, but we love our round numbers. And I get it. I don't really have a problem with it even, 3,000 strikeouts, 3,000 hits, 300 wins, 200 hits in a season, batting 300. There's so many of these things that round numbers seem meaningful to people, and we celebrate the round numbers. And so I hope at the end of the season, chances are Freddie Freeman's not going to get 4 hits today and get to 200. Chances are he's going to fall short. And I hope that he is still very, very happy with his new career high in hits. I hope he feels good about finishing second in the batting chase, and probably finishing second in the MVP race. That Freddie Freeman has had a great season, whether he gets to 200 hits or not. And it's just I don't know, like, I'm not even criticizing the obsession with the round numbers. I understand it, and I think it's hilariously stupid at the same time, if that makes sense. And so I take part in it too. I'm excited for Clayton Kershaw's 3,000th strikeout that I hope comes in a Dodger uniform in the next couple of years. There's Clayton Kershaw's, all these numbers that people get, players get, people we care about. 3,000 hits, I guess 3,000 hits you actually do tie Roberto Clemente on a list. You actually move up a spot. But yeah, it's round numbers and it's silly. And I wish Freddie Freeman was going to get to 200 hits, but I think it's okay that he's not. I'm going to come back in a minute. I'm going to talk about the actual structure of the postseason. A listener asked me to go over this. We'll talk about who the Dodgers are playing and when, and all of what that will look like. So thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. Okay, I am back, and we're going to talk about the postseason, and we actually have everything set in stone now. We know who made the postseason, and we know where their seeds are, where they're ranked. And I'm going to hit the cough button again. Excuse me. Okay. After Wednesday night, we have everything locked up. The Braves clinched the National League East, which means the Braves get the first round bye. After it looked all season like it was going to be the Mets, it is now the Braves instead. And instead of the 2 seed getting a bye, the Mets are now the 4 seed, the top wild card seed. And that's the thing. They put a lot of importance on winning your division because the Mets have the 3rd best record in the league, but they're the 4th seed because the Cardinals, who are worse than the Mets, won their division. And maybe that'll be more meaningful next year when there's more of a balanced schedule. Everybody will play everybody. Right now, it's kind of silly because really you're rewarding the Cardinals for playing in a worse division. The NL Central is a bad division, and so that's I don't know how I feel about it, but it is what it is, and I do think there's value in winning the division. So, in the National League, well, I'll just run down the American League first. We don't care as much about that because the Dodgers will only play at most one team for the American League. The Yankees and Astros. The Astros are the 1 seed. The Yankees are the 2 seed. They get the bye. The Rays and the Guardians will play each other in the first round, with the winner of that series playing the Yankees in the ALDS. And then the Mariners and the Blue Jays will play each other. The Mariners are the 5 seed. The Blue Jays are the 4 seed. So the Blue Jays are the top wild card. Mariners are the second wild card. They'll play each other, and the winner of that series will take on the Astros in the ALDS. Then you get, it goes on from there. In the National League, the Phillies are the 3rd wild card team, so they're the 6th seed. They will take on the Cardinals, the 3 seed, in the wild card round. And then the 4 seed Mets will take on the 5 seed Padres in the wild card round. The winner of the Phillies Cardinals series will take on the Braves in the NLDS, and the winner of the Padres Mets series will take on the Dodgers in the NLDS, with the Dodgers having home field advantage. That Mets Padres series it's a best of 3, and all 3 games will be played at Citi Field in New York. So the Padres have their work cut out for them. They have to beat Jacob deGrom and Max Scherzer at Citi Field. The Padres have good pitching too, but it's going to be a tough task. And whichever team wins that will then fly to LA to take on the Dodgers. The dates for that, the wild card games, National League wild card round, the games are October 7th, 8th, and 9th. So there's just one day off potentially. If that series goes all 3 games, there's just one day off, the 10th, before the NLDS starts on October 11th. And so assuming, for example, Jacob deGrom starts game 1 of this wild card series for the Mets on the 7th, he probably wouldn't pitch in the NLDS until game 2 on the 12th. I doubt they'd go with him on short rest for game 1. So he would probably pitch game 2, Scherzer game 3, and maybe deGrom coming back on short rest for game 5. But that's the benefit of having the bye, and it's the downside for the Mets of not getting the bye, is in their division series, realistically, the Dodgers are only going to have to face deGrom and Scherzer once each. And that's a huge deal because you need to win 3 games. And deGrom and Scherzer are both very good pitchers. I believe the Dodgers can beat both of those guys. I think it's unlikely that they will beat both of them. I think they could definitely beat one of them. But the thing is, you can win a series even without beating either of them if they can only pitch 2 of the games. And so it's a big deal. It's still going to be a tough matchup. The Mets are a very good team. It could be the Padres. And that would be interesting too. The Padres have the same situation. They would have used their top 3 pitchers to get through that series. And so those guys wouldn't be available right at the top. And the Dodgers have played pretty well against the Padres this year. Obviously, the Padres will be very motivated to beat the Dodgers in a postseason matchup. Whoever it is, the Dodgers are going to be the better team, but anything can happen in a short series. And that's one of the scariest things about the postseason is what if the offense goes cold? What if, one little thing, 2019. I always go back to 2019. The Dodgers had that series won against the Nationals, and then one mistake by Dave Roberts, boom, game is gone, series gone, and the season's over. And that's the nature of the postseason, that one little thing can derail your entire season. So it's going to be fun. And I do want to take 1 minute, one more time to implore you guys, like the nature of the postseason. Ever since divisional play started in 1969, we have gotten further and further away from a postseason whose goal is to find out who's the best team in baseball. That used to be what it was. In 1955, the Dodgers won the National League and the Yankees won the American League, and they faced each other in the World Series, and the Dodgers won the World Series. Max of 7 postseason games. Now, I can't even count how many games there are, but if you've got 3, 6, 9, 12, 22, 32, plus 14 is 56, plus another 7, 63 potential postseason games this year. That's 9 times as many as there used to be. And every addition to the postseason makes it less and less likely that the best team in baseball will win the World Series. These days, it's only like 25% of the time that the actual best team in baseball wins the World Series. And that's okay. That's how it is. And that's why I don't give any credence to people who say, oh, Mickey Mouse ring in 2020 because of shortened season. No, it was the rules everybody played by. And the Dodgers, they won. They were the best team in the regular season. Then the best team in the postseason. They won the World Series that everybody was trying to win. So, it's sour grapes. And last year, the Braves, they weren't the best team in baseball. They won 88 games in the regular season, but they got hot at the right time and they won the tournament that was set up, and they are totally legit World Series champions. Do I wish it was the Dodgers? Absolutely. But the Braves are absolutely legit. The Giants last year, better team than the Dodgers by 1 game in the regular season, lost to them in the playoffs. That's the nature of the postseason. But the fact that the regular season has been devalued by this expanded postseason doesn't take away from the beauty of the regular season. And that's the thing. One of the great things about baseball is the 162 game season. We get to imagine being a Pirates fan or a Marlins fan and knowing your season was over since like May, and think how much better we have it because it's October 5th and our team still has a very good chance to win it all. I mean, we are a full 5 months later than Pirates and Marlins fans realistically had any hope. And that's something over this last decade that I hope we haven't gotten spoiled, because, when people say World Series are bust, I get it. And yeah, I absolutely want the Dodgers to win the World Series. There's nothing I want more from a baseball standpoint. But bust, no. We've had 6 great months. It's been a lot of fun to watch this team. Seeing Freddie Freeman in a Dodger uniform, Mookie Betts, all he's done. Like, there's been so much fun this year. Julio's great season. Kershaw's great season. Tony Gonsolin's great season. All this stuff, it's not going to go away if the Dodgers lose in the postseason. Hopefully it'll be a moot point. They'll just win the World Series and we won't have to worry about it. But the beauty of the 162 game season is we get 6 months of fun watching a great baseball team. And I personally am thankful to be a Dodger fan, a fan of a team that puts a great product out on the field every year so that I can enjoy that 6 months. And I hope you guys feel that way too. I'm not going to tell you how to be a fan, but that's how I feel. And I hope you will see the value in that anyway. And with that said, I think that's going to do it for me today. The postseason, it's going to be scary. It's going to be stressful. Vince and I will be with you every weekday to talk about it. We may even do some bonus episodes because, postseason games happen on the weekend. If there's something we need to talk about, we'll hop in. We may try to do some live bonus episodes just right after games, just a quick little live show. There a lot of stuff we're thinking about doing for the postseason. But one thing you can count on is we are going to be here for you to bring you all the Dodgers news and insights that you need during the postseason. So thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. And now for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB. MLB expert Paul Francis Sullivan brings humor, passion, and unique perspective on every team and the biggest stories around the league. Follow the #1 daily league-wide podcast, Locked On MLB, on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get podcasts. If you're not watching or listening to Locked On Dodgers every weekday morning, we would love if you add 1 or 2 days a month to your rotation. If you have friends or family who love the show or love the Dodgers, please tell them about the show. You can follow us on Instagram and on Twitter at Locked On Dodgers. Vince is on Twitter at Vince Samperio. I'm on Twitter at Snydog, and the DMs are open in all of those places. Our email address is lockedondodgers@gmail.com, and our phone number for voicemails or text messages is 323-863-LOCK, 5625. We are here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car or sit on your couch, tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree, you just have to listen. We'll talk to you tomorrow.